Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hi, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Wealth Builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life and business. And we want to welcome you to another episode of Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live. And do we have a live show for you today? Have you ever stopped and wondered, wow, this philosophy, I wish I knew about this when I was younger? How much younger? Maybe in your 20s? How about your teens? How about elementary school? Yes, elementary school. Well, today, our special guests have been masterminding, some since elementary, some since junior high, some since high school. And we're going to have a very exciting show as we engage with them today. And I am not here alone. So let me welcome my co host, none other than that special person that only requires one word for her name. Good morning, Pekin. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Wow, I am so excited for this show. Think about it. What would have our life been like had we even known about this when we were in elementary school or teenage or any of that? And you've been reading to your kids Think and Grow Rich instead of a storybook. You've been reading this book to the kids since they were infants. I think that it's so exciting to to be around young people whose future is just opening up, and they're going with these principles that you and I know that when we learned the principles and we start applying what it did for our lives, but to have it be, at a young age, I'm just so glad. How old were you when you were first read Think and Grow Rich?
Oh, Pekin, I don't know how old I was. I just know that it was 9 p.m. 1979.
So the
1979, December 31st. So I was probably in my early 20s. Yes, my early 20s, right after graduate school. So I had to be in my early, not even in my mid 20s at the time.
so that's when I first
So,
read it when I was in my early 20s. But then I put it down.
of
Right?
course,
I read it, put it, and then I put it down. What these old guys telling me about life?
ex-
Who am I? Right? So
exactly.
I'm really excited about this. And do you want to introduce who's going to be on, and then we do the 13 principles? Would you like to do the 13 principles beforehand?
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and talk about the we're wrapping up, actually we're wrapping the book up, and so we've already walked through all 13 of the principles, and this particular show is celebrating, actually in preparation for our annual meeting. And we really want to give our listeners a teaser, if you will, in terms of why they should invest in their family as a mastermind group, and why they should invest in their children and also in themselves when they think about this philosophy and the difference it can make in their lives and in the lives of really the family. So we're going to go to the 13 principles and steps. And if you would introduce that, and when we come back, we will introduce our special guest.
I can't wait for everybody to hear from these young people. This is going to be life transforming for you as well as for your family, because you're going to want to hear what these young people say. So let's look at the 13 steps that's all talked about in the book of Think and Grow Rich so that you can know how to start your steps and move forward. Let's run our 13 steps.
Number one is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step two is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step three is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Well, and then we are back. I want to just make sure that if we have any individuals who are calling in for the very first time, we want to thank all of you. Listen, you know who you are. Doretha, always here. Thank you so very much. And so many of you that are here every single Saturday joining us. I want to just mention that if this is your very first time watching this podcast or listening, if you will, to the podcast or watching the show on YouTube, be mindful that this book, Think and Grow Rich, and these 13 principles, this philosophy was actually written during a time that many were experiencing what we now know as the Great Depression, and millions of people who were negatively impacted by what was going on at that time. And so when Napoleon Hill was asked by Andrew Carnegie if he would be willing to take 20 years of his life and write a philosophy of success to help the world understand why is it that some people are born very wealthy and they die poor, and then some people are born very poor and they amass a lot of wealth. What are the principles? What's the philosophy behind that? And the fact that anybody can actually do this if you have a desire and you're using faith, and all of the principles that we just heard of is possible. Well, what we're going to share with you tonight is that it's possible at any age. Age is not a factor, does not matter how young you are, not or nor how old you are. So with that thought in mind, let's go ahead and bring in our special guest. And we're going to ask our guests to tell you a little bit about who they are and their aha moment from this philosophy and this principle. I'm going to start with the youngest person first, and then we'll go to the end. All right. So the first person I'd like to introduce you to is Miss Winter Williams. So Winter Williams, good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm very good.
Thank you. Can you tell a little our listeners a little bit about yourself? Just a little bit about yourself. Where your 30-second commercial.
Okay. My name is Winter Williams. I am 10 years old. I do gymnastics. And I love working out and doing very healthy stuff. And I love tomatoes.
All right, all right. So when were you introduced to this book, and what are your thoughts about this book?
I was introduced to this book in 2020 when the quarantine started. My mom introduced me, and I said yes because I really was interested in it. Well, yeah. My favorite moments of this book is learning about all the chapters and making my new goals and my long-term goals and achieving them. It made me really happy and proud of myself.
Well, I
Can you
tell you
share
one.
with some? Can you share one of the goals that you desired and that you achieved because of the book? What was one of those goals?
I achieved my $800. I achieved my gymnastics goals. I achieved a lot of goals.
I love that.
So one of the special one of the special moments for me with Winter is just so that our listeners understand. Each of these individuals have masterminded with us. We've been masterminding with the kids literally for over 30 years. And you're going to get to meet some of them that's been masterminding with us for a long time. But every Sunday at 3:30, we meet with them for about 30 minutes on Zoom. And so Winter surprised all of us a couple of Sundays ago where she has memorized her affirmations. So Winter, if you don't mind, to share that with our audience. Is that all right with you?
Yes. By January 1st, 2022, I will have in my possession $1,000. It will come to me in various amounts from time to time during the term. In return for this money, I will give my most beneficent services in the capacity of the fullest possible quantity in the best possible quantity in the services of I will sew my nail polishes, my t-shirt designs, walk dogs, do my chores, and get good grades, all A's. By in return for the oops.
You're doing great. Go ahead. In
Um,
return for this money.
I believe that I will have this in my possession. My faith is so strong I can see the money before my eyes. I can touch it in my hands. It is now being transferred to me at the time of the promotion I deliver the services I intend to render. But in the first possible quantity, I will commit this money by which is sent, by I will follow the plan once it is received.
All right. Thank you so
Wow.
much. Thank you, Winter.
Winter, you
Yes,
just
wow, wow.
inspired a whole bunch of people. Let me tell you, I have a in my mastermind. I cannot wait for them to share and hear that because I've been telling them you got to memorize, you got to know it, you got to live it, and you are doing all of that. Cool.
Yes, she is. All right. The next person we'd like to bring on is none other than Mr. Cameron. Yes, Mr. Anthony Cameron. Good morning, Anthony. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Miss Ann. Happy holidays, everybody. I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome, awesome.
We're
Can
doing
you
great.
tell us a little bit about when were you introduced to this philosophy and any aha moments that you've had so far?
I was introduced to the book around the same time as winter, before the pandemic, maybe a little bit as it started. And I'm going to be honest, it's kind of opposite from her. You know, being at home for so long, being able to do what I wanted to do, having to be strict down and just having to come to every Sunday meeting just felt, restricting. But after I started to get into it, I just felt like, wow, this is something I really need. And once I figured out something I really needed, something that I really started to get into. And my aha moment was probably just the antidote to procrastination. I feel like it's something that especially people my age struggle with. And just hearing that, being able to share it with some of my friends also, just, it felt empowering.
I love that. So you were sharing what you were learning from Your Sunday Mastermind with your friends.
Mhm.
And what were you sharing with them that was attractive to them?
Uh, the main thing that was attracted to them, to most of them, was obviously being able to save for their future and money. That's just, the reality of it. But after they started to see this, realized how much work it is and how much it would benefit them in the future, no matter when they get into it, they've at least learned that getting into it early is probably the best thing for their future and for them.
That's fantastic. And for you, so what is something that you have walked away with, you personally, if it, like Winter was sharing about her affirmation and her successes, what is a success that you have had because of this experience? That would be great to hear.
Uh, I like to apply a lot of them to my life, but the antidote to procrastination again and self-conscious mind have been two big ones, especially since I play football. So, being committed is something that, is a really big thing, and not being distracted and being able to get up and do all the stuff you need to do to be great is something that I've always taken away, and something that's always stuck with me, and it's helping me get to where I want to be.
Wow. And how old are you?
15.
Wow. Wow. I'm just you both are blowing my mind.
Well,
What were
well,
you? I wanted you to be my friend when I was 15. I
well,
wanted friends like you.
well, let's keep going so we can bring the other ladies in. So the next person we're going to introduce to our audience is none other than Miss Natasha Jugger. Good morning, Natasha. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How are you all doing?
We're doing great. We're going to ask you the same question. How old were you when you were first introduced to this philosophy? And if you don't mind telling the world, how old are you now?
Yes, of course. So, when I was first introduced to this philosophy, I was approximately 10 years of age. And I am now 24 years of age. So, this concept has been introduced to me for over 14 years now.
And any particular aha moment or outstanding principle that you utilize, or any thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before we get into the program?
Yes, absolutely. One of the aha moments that I had, I was reading the book, it really came from principle number one, which is desire. And one of the things that he was saying, Mr. Hill was saying as you were reading the book, is your desire has to be strong enough that even when you're going through tough life situations, that desire still stands, even when things get rough. And so my aha moment was, as an author, a young author, there are ebbs and flows, I feel, when it comes to book sales, when it comes to support. And so my desire is to still be a best-selling book writer, to be an author that travels the world. And when the pandemic hit, that's an example of things getting rough. Not as many vendor opportunities to go out and sell my book in different cities across the nation. And so things really really did get rough for me. But because my desire was still there, because I remember that principle and how to apply it from the book, I was able to continue and still work on my next book and just have that desire still there so that when the time comes, I'd be prepared.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, we're going to round this out. And Pekin, I don't know if you have a question now, or let's bring in the
I,
last one.
this is a face of being stunned. I'm just being stunned.
Well, let's
Uh,
put a bow on it though. But let's go ahead and put a bow on it. And the
Go
bow
ahead.
we're gonna the bow we're gonna put on it is I think probably the person who's experienced this the longest of all of our youth here today is probably Kiana Thomas. So we want to bring her on and welcome her to the show. Good morning, Kiana. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I am great. I'm so
So
excited to be here.
So, Kiana, the same question for you. How old were you first? How old were you when you were first introduced to the philosophy? How old are you now? And if there are any aha moments that you've experienced as a part of this philosophy from Think and Grow Rich?
Wow. Yes. I was actually introduced to this philosophy in this book at about 11. About 11 years old. I was a part of the original group of kids that started to read and understand the principles. What I ended up doing, because these things don't leave you, is I kind of used it to my benefit and I didn't want to give the book anything. So what I did was I learned young that as long as my mindset was set on something, there was nothing I couldn't achieve. I didn't want to apply any other principle though. So ever since then, there's never been a job, to be honest, that I went for and I really didn't get. There's nothing, because I knew how to put my mind to something and get there because I had these principles. And so the great thing about this book is once you get that instilled, regardless if you're reading, if you're on the right path or not, those principles are going to work. So there was a lot of times that I had the gift to do things off the cuff that a lot of people had to study for. But the difference between them and I wasn't necessarily skill. I already knew how to work my mind. They did it. So I was doing it that way for a very long time till I realized I was only cheating myself. So fast forward to where I am now. And when I got to the point where I knew that wasn't getting me to my full potential, I might be outwitting the people in the class that I chose to be in, but I wasn't at my full potential. So that really wasn't work. So once I started, you start to have that desire to do more. You start to have a desire to be more. And I knew where to go to finish. So I started picking up this book again. And my aha moment recently from this book is I can put a date to a desire and eliminate the word want from my vocabulary, period. I've learned there's nothing I want to do. Because if I did, I'd have a date to it. And the moment you put a date to a desire, guess what? You're in the process of doing it immediately. So those are the things, and they talk about the principle of law of attraction and anything in action will stay in action, anything not in action, that whole thing. I probably said that wrong. Y'all know what it is. Okay. But the point I'm trying to make is what happens when you put that date to a desire, you started the process. So now if somebody asks me if I want to write a book, the moment I've decided I'm going to publish a book by this date, I'm already in the process of writing the book. Do you see how that works? And so when you learn that, there's a certain type of confidence that you get. There's a certain type of way you walk into rooms because you now know I've taken my power back. I don't have to be jealous of any talent of anyone else because I can decide what I want to do, when I'm going to do it, how I'm going to do it. But so that I can actually perfect my craft, I've got to continue to read the book. I've got to continue to feed that so that that goes on. But I'm not going to take up y'all time. So that was my aha moment.
And now the other question was, how old are you now? And then I go to Pekin.
35. I am 35 now.
I'm loving that you were sharing about knowing when you were at 10, 11, knowing the book, seeing the desire, understanding the power of the mind, understanding where you were going, and then how you also use the book the rest of your life when you went back to picking it up and really understanding that there was other depth to it, and the joy of knowing that this book doesn't just stop when you get the first thing, the desire, and then you get the second thing of saying the date, and then you'll get all this other juicy information that will fulfill your life. So I thank you for sharing. I wanted to ask all the four of you, the question of what do you notice about yourself? Kiana, you talked a little bit about the sense of confidence. What do you know about yourself when you're entering a room, or when you're uh, even making a presentation, or that you're like now being on camera? How do you find yourself approaching it now that would be very different from maybe some of your friends or who you were before you started this process? Anthony, I'm curious to enter in here. How do you approach life now differently than you did before you started this process? Aside from the persistence, how do you carry yourself, and why?
I'd say overall more confident. I have like, especially for things like this, I have more of a set, like it's kind of like a script in my head. I know most of what I'm gonna say. I don't even have to rehearse. It's to the point where it's like, like that. I can just, think about it and be like, okay, I know what I'm gonna do, and I can be calm most of the time and not have to twiddle my fingers and stutter. I can articulate more easily even without rehearsing, and that's the main thing. Just being more confident overall.
I love that concept of being articulate and confident and calm. That those are powerful words. How about you, Winter? What are you noticing about yourself that's different?
I used Before I started the meetings, I used to be really shy, and like I have to really think really hard about what I'm gonna say during presentations, because like I didn't really present that much. But now I present like basically on a daily basis of my aha moments, and I'm not as shy. I know how to like do goals more. I used to think that like everything depended on my mom and stuff, that I needed help for every single thing. But now I know that like I can do it myself if I just try and if I have a desire. Like if I just plan it out.
I love this. Can I join your mastermind group? Because you people are just kicking it and just making things happen. So, Natasha, I love the fact that both Anthony and Winter were talking about how they knew, that they're just more confident because they're more prepared, they're more aware, they're more new. And you were talking about your book and not, the pandemic changing in terms of your sales of your book. How did you pivot? And how have you used the book and the mastermind to help you pivot with dealing with this, your book sales or and your writing, and where are you going?
Yeah, great question. So I think one of the things that I've dealt with was fear. And when you think of the word fear, it's FEAR. And they've always said that fear is false evidence appearing real. And so, even as I went through this pandemic, one of the things I began was I felt like the spirit of fear was coming upon me, because I began, as I saw sales decline, I equated that to success. And I thought that because sales were declining, then that made me a failure. And I've always had a fear of being a failure. And so one of the things that really helped me as I re-went throughout this book, was principle number 2, which is faith. And it says, always let your faith be bigger than your fear. And so what really helped me go throughout this process, even if things were happening, was reigniting my faith, always having faith throughout this process that no matter what, I would come out on top, and that no amount of finances, no amount of money would determine what level of success is. My success is within myself, but I have to have that level of faith. And the other thing that I also thought of was, there's a saying that says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And so for me, that also stemmed with the fact that, okay, what is it that I think about myself? Because whatever I think about myself will determine my trajectory, and it'll determine it almost says your attitude determines your altitude. And so these are the things that, going back through the book during the pandemic, helped me, and it reignited my faith, as in principle number 2.
I love this. I love this. And I'm having so much fun over here. I just can't stand it. It's just like so good and so juicy. I am so happy to hear that. I'm gonna go and go back and there are a couple of things that I think that you all have been saying, and I wanted to just be able to touch base and say, so Do it sounds, because of the book, as though all of your lives are so easy, that everything is just easy. I got it going on. I'm doing this. I'm getting a job done. You should, I know how to stay focused. I know how it is. I want to just hear from, where am I? I want to hear from, is it Natasha? That, so is life easy?
No, by no means. Oh, so yes, to answer your question, by no means is life easy. But I think it's not that life is easy, but it's a life worth living, so to speak. I think for me, the book, what happens is there are times in life where there's ebbs and flows, there's successes, there's failures, and it never means that life is going to be easy or that it's going to be better. But I think in reading the book, it helps you navigate those trials and it helps you navigate those tribulations. It's kind of like, for example, if something breaks down in a house or somewhere, you always have a manual to go back to. For example, for believers, whenever things are going wrong, we always have the Bible to go back to. For us who are navigating success in life, whenever things fail or go wrong, it's not that everything is perfect or everything is copacetic. That was the first word that came to my mind. But it's that we always have something to come back to say, okay, this is Think and Grow Rich is my blueprint. Now let's build.
So, Kiana, I'm going to ask you, has life been easy for you?
No. I won't lie. I think that since I've decided to do this, life has actually gotten a lot harder. However, it is hard because it's hard work that I have to do. It's almost easier to do work you have to do because it's an immediate response. You know that if you go to work, when you get paid, there's going to be money on the check because you went to work. But when you start to work on yourself, when you start to build you, when you start to deal with your own challenges because you want to get to the vision of yourself that you really want to be, that's hard because there isn't a guaranteed check. There isn't a certain amount of hours that I'm going to clock in and receive. I have to have so much faith in between the time of when I start and I see this vision to where I can, to in between then and when I can actually physically see this vision. And for anybody, that can be years in the making.
Oh,
What
trust me, I
happens,
know that one.
yes. So what happens for us though, to keep, and I say us, those of us who are masterminding, because I take pride in being a part of that group. I work hard, I own it. Okay. For those of us who are masterminding and who are striving, we will get nuggets and we will get certain things that remind us that what we're doing, the principles are working. It is responding, and it is always better than the life we were living because though it was easier, it didn't have a goal. I didn't have a destiny. I wasn't aiming towards anything. I was just being comfortable and sitting in really nothingness. So this gives me stability. It gives me a reference point. It gives me control. It lets me know that I can control how this is happening, when this is happening, and how do I make the best of every situation. Because ultimately, the whole point of this book, and you learn, is so you can think and grow rich. And there's a certain desire you have to pass it on, because that's the other half of it. So the more
Oh,
that I go through, the more that I use the book, it is harder for me because there's times that I want to say, I don't feel like it, but I have a mastermind group that I'm accountable for. I have to bring the same energy to the rest of my team who kept going. I don't want to be the weak link that didn't show up that week. I don't want to be the person whose name's not under the date for writing the affirmation statement. And I high five everybody on my way down. Thank you for showing up with me. I'm here with you. I showed up today too. And so what happens is you do that repeatedly, and it just becomes something that now becomes a habit. So it's not so much that it's hard, but I couldn't undo it now if I wanted to.
I hear it.
To me. So that's my thought on that.
I love it. And I got to tell you something. And I just want you to, where is she? There she is. And I got to tell you something.
Yes, Bikini.
I'm going to the annual event for the first time. And at Thanksgiving and on holidays, everybody gets to everybody desires to be at the adult table. Put Ann on. And I don't want to be at the adult table. I want to be at the International Mastermind meeting, the annual event. I want to be at the kids table. I want to be with Anthony and Natasha and Kiana and Winter. I they are blowing my mind, and they are making me recognize I got to go deeper in this book. I got to be I want to be in their mastermind. Can I just uh, I'll put my hair in pigtails. Please, please. Can you just share about the
Well,
annual event, or maybe have the our guests share about their experience in the annual event?
absolutely. And what I'd like to do is start with Anthony and have you, Anthony, share your first annual meeting experience and also the writing of your first annual report. And then we're going to go to Winter and then to Natasha. And there's an entire experience, and then to Kiana. But let's talk about the annual meeting. And I'll just take a break for one moment and share the details. We are hosting an annual meeting for your life. And what I'd like for each of you that's listening, yes, Miss Stephanie E. Banks, thank you for joining. And Mariama, Dr. Williams, thank you also for joining us this morning and participating in the chat. But I'd like for each of our listeners, first of all, to remember to please subscribe to our YouTube. But think about the fact that every organization that you are aligned with, on an annual basis, they do an annual report that basically shares about the health of that organization. So if you invest in a publicly traded corporation, they give you an annual report at the end of the year, and they let you know how the organization is doing financially, fiscally. If you live in a city or a state, whether it's the mayor or the commissioners, they give you an annual report about the health and wealth of your county, your state. The president, on an annual basis, he comes and he shares the state of the union, the state of the United States. How is the company, the corporation, the country, how are we doing? But I don't think that it's robbery for each of us to do the same. And on an annual basis, write an annual report for your life. How are you doing physically, financially? How about in your relationships with your family, your civic, your recreation, personal development, all of these different areas of your life, and of course, your business? So, we want to invite all of you to join us in Boca Raton, Florida, at the Embassy Suites on January 7th at 6 p.m. and January 8th from about 8 to about 3. Join us as we host another annual meeting for your life. Now, this is not a conference. There are no keynote speakers, there's no conference bags. No, this is about your life. We're asking you to bring your life in writing. Yes, your life in writing. And you can join us by going to internationalmasterminders.com and registering. Now, space is limited, so please don't wait because of the limited space. You may not be able to get in if you wait and decide, well, I'll register when I get there. No. I was blessed today by a person who reached out to us internationally, and they asked, listen, I can't make it this year, but when will you host a virtual meeting? And I responded and said, we did that the last couple of years, but this year we're not hosting a virtual. And surprisingly, they said, you know what? You do such a phenomenal job during the prep. I believe I'm going to go ahead and register anyway, even though I cannot make it, so that I can benefit from the prep meetings that you hold every week up until the event. And once I saw that message, it dawned on me that person is committed. Even though they cannot make the meeting in person, they are still going to register and invest in themselves to do the work, to learn how to write that annual report for their life. And so I want to encourage you, even if you cannot physically make it, register anyway and learn how to write your annual report and be held accountable by a larger group. All right. So let's go to you, Anthony, and share about your annual report.
Yeah, I remember when I first started writing it. I was sitting there on the floor with my mom, and we were just going over, and her trying to explain to me. It was kind of, iffy. But once I finally got it, I revised it so many times. I looked over it so many times. And when it actually came, the time to turn it in, I felt good about it. It's a lot of stuff like it's kind of like in your hands. Like what are you willing to do, and what are you going to do? There's a lot of that, and about my first experience there, it was great. Uh, it was actually, you know, it was fun. We were able to, um, do a lot of stuff, walk around the hotel. I brought my friend with me also, and it was a really great time. It's a better time than you would expect as a kid. So uh, overall, it's just a wonderful experience, and I recommend it to anybody.
All right. Well, we're going to look forward to seeing you again this year at the annual meeting in Boca Raton. And so next, Miss Winter Williams, your annual report. You have any aha moments that you'd like to share about this experience in your annual report?
At the annual report last year, my experience was like really fun. I really enjoyed listening to like the other kids, like ideas of the Think and Grow Rich when they was at the spot. It was really fun, and I enjoyed talking and stuff.
So, Winter, share with us a little bit about your report for this year. I know you've been working very hard and you've made some changes to your report. And I know also that you had a very special experience this year with your chess goal that you set. Can you share with our listeners about your goal you set in being in learning how to play chess?
This year for chess, I learned a lot. I learned how to rook roll. I learned so many things, and now my dad says that I'm really good. And now I can literally speak the chess language. Some other goals about me, that I mastered some of my gymnastics tricks. I mastered handstands. I almost like mastered my aerial. I'm trying to master my front handspring, my back handspring. The back flips are really hard, which is like really cool. For Christmas, I'm gonna go and join a gym thing for gymnastics, so that will help a lot. I learned this year with my goals, I learned a way to make $50 within an hour just in my neighborhood. I did it a few weeks ago, and I think I can do it again. I have achieved a lot of goals this year, and one of my favorite ones was getting along with my little brother. Sometimes he gets annoying, but sometimes he's not. I learned to like just deal with it, and now we play together really nicely. And he's my best friend now.
Wow, thank you. And that's a family goal. So thank you so very much for that. And I want to also publicly thank you for being consistent every Sunday as best you can. And the same thing with you, Anthony. Now that school is back in, we want to just continue to encourage all of you to continue to invest in yourself by showing up. So now let's go to Miss Natasha. Natasha, I know it's been a while. You were very diligent when you were younger with showing up with your annual report in writing. So, is there a special goal that you set and hit as a result of writing your annual report?
Yes, absolutely. So I could remember as I was younger getting those annual reports where, like, for example, all the way back to would have 3 years a row 2011, 2012, 2013, and so on and so forth. And I remember I think it was actually you were telling a testimony about Malachi. And one of the questions that was on the annual report is, have you maxed out your 401k? And of course, back then, I didn't know what a 401k was. I didn't know, but all I knew is that when I got old enough and I was able to have a job, I was going to quote unquote max out my 401k. That is, of course, until I got to corporate America and found out what it meant to max out my 401k and what it took. But even back then, it inspired me because now I work at Northrop Grumman Corporation, which is a defense contractor. And so I do have a 401k with the company. me. And so I started working at the company in 2018. And I remembered, right, because of the annual report, I remembered that for so long I had to check the box no on my annual report that I hadn't maxed out my 401k, that came back to me as I had been working at the company. And I had made a decision that in the year 2020, I was going to max out my 401k because it was on my annual report, and I was going to be able to come back to the conference and check yes. And I did it. And I was so grateful. And that's just a small testimony. And then the other thing is, like, for example, another question on the annual report would be, are you an author? Have you written a book? And there were so many years that I had to check no, no, no. But something in me said, you can't keep checking no to everything on your annual report. Something's got to give. And so as a result of being inspired, I was able to come back year after year now and check yes to maxing out my 401k. And yes, I've written my first book, and I'm working on my next one. So
All
I'm
right.
inspired.
And I'm inspired by your inspiration. All right. So Kiana, can you share with us some aha moments about your annual report from years ago and something that you're aspiring to do this year as a part of your annual report?
So my annual report from years ago is totally different from my annual report now because my mom actually has some of my old stuff. And my reports are super selfish. My old ones, I was very into what I could get. That is one of the things that is totally different from my report this year. My report this year is all about what I can give. How much more can I stand to give in order to get towards my goals? Writing my annual report this year is very, very emotional for me. There's been a lot of change in my life. It is amazing for people who have known me throughout this change to see me, the different respect I command. They are telling me there's something different about me. I am changing people at my job. I'm changing people everywhere because of how I'm carrying myself, how I talk to them. And I finally am discovering and seeing all of myself. And all of that is attributed to this book and my mastermind group, because you need to have both. That's very important. One of the goals that I have for 2022 that is really big for me is I really want to get my books into schools. That is something that I am working diligently at. That is a huge thing for me. And it's dealing with my confidence in that regard. I'm working on that. But that is something that is one of my goals for 2022. And I'm working to make the connections, to network, and to make room for it to be actually realized. Because a lot of times I'm learning through the book, I can have lofty goals, but I won't make room and prepare for them. So I am learning to do that. So that is one of the things that is a huge part of me writing my annual report this year.
All right, now we're going to go backwards. Many of you have talked, well, at least a couple of you have talked about your book. So can you share with us in the chat and mention it so that everybody know? I'm going to come back to Natasha and ask you the same thing, Natasha. So Kiana, you mentioned a book or books. Can you share with us the title of your book and what motivated you to write it or publish? Write or publish?
Yes. My first book is the main goal. It's called Worth the Wood. And Worth the Wood is a book about persistence, and it is inspired by the chapter on autosuggestion and desire. So it's a book for kids. It's a kid's book, and it's about a lumberjack who is determined to do something that other lumberjacks in his field just do not think he can do. And they're trying to stand in his way. They won't help him. And no matter what, he continues at this goal. And it's so, the good thing is I do a little twist at the end. Not only does he succeed, it's how well he succeeds. And I'm always so excited when people read the book and they're like, that is awesome. I want my son or my child to have this book, and more people buy it and buy it. And my goal behind Worth the Wood eventually is to have a Worth the Wood initiative. And there's a whole plan that I have behind that, but it is really to teach, just like we're doing here, youth the skill of goal setting. How you start from one thing, one picture, and you keep going until you can get the wood from the tree that you're chopping, because all the effort is worth the wood you're going to get back. So that is one of the books that I'm really, really excited about. And that is available on fawnfables.com. And you can go on there, and I have 3 other books on there as well. But Worth the Wood is the book that I'm championing right now. That's my first book, and that's the one I really want people to buy.
Now, I have to tell everybody, that this all happened in the last 90 days,
Yes.
120 days.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And then there was silence. So I just want to say that, because we're not talking about years. We're talking about
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Yes.
And your YouTube channel and everything you're doing has
Yes.
just been phenomenal. So I just want to
Yes.
give you kudos, and your mom and your grandmom. And so
Yes.
thank you so very much. You all are being an excellent example. So we're going to bring Natasha back and have her tell everybody a little bit about her title of her book. And can you both please make sure you put in the chat, so we're going to go ahead and prepare to wrap up, but let people know how they can reach you and the links to your books. So Natasha and Kiana, you can put yours in the chat.
All right. Yes. So, hello everyone. I didn't introduce myself. I am greetings and humble salutations. I'm Natasha Brianna Jagger, and I'm excited to be here. And so, as Miss Ann was talking about bringing our books on, I wanted everybody to see the book that I have written. It's called 3G Connection: Go to God, Grow with Grace, and Glow with Glory. And it's by me. And then here's just a picture of the book. But one of the things and one of the questions she asks is, what really inspired you to write the book? And it actually goes back to a principle in Think and Grow Rich, without getting into too much detail, when it talks about transmutation. But one of the things that really inspired me to write the book was, it was during my season of what you call waiting, as we would say as believers. And it was a season where I needed to turn certain things that were going on, and I needed to use that energy and really focus on my relationship with God. And I noticed that, so even as a Gen Zer, so shout out to all my Gen Zs that are tuning in, and to millennials, hey. But I noticed that in a society of Generation Z and millennials, where we're taught to have things on demand, where we're taught that, things should be fast and they should be convenient and we shouldn't have to wait for anything, I was inspired to write this book for a generation of young leaders, right? My next book is actually called, I don't know if you guys can see it, but this is
Yes.
my poster board. It's called A Guide to Living Your Best Life for Young Leaders. And so even in writing those books, I was inspired because there's a generation that tells us it's boring to live the right life. It's boring to wait for marriage. It's boring to be what the world would call quote unquote safe. And I wrote a book based on relationship with God that'll inspire you to wait, and it'll inspire you to be a young leader for your generation. And like the Think and Grow Rich book, use that transmutation, turn that thing off, but turn on what you should, so that God can get the glory from your life. And that's really what my books are about.
All right, thank you. And please make sure you let people know how to reach you and how they can purchase the book. So now we're going to go backwards to Anthony, and then to Winter, and then to Pagine. And we'll talk about how people can reach you, Pagine, and what you'd like for them to know as we prepare to wrap up. This has been a phenomenal opportunity for all of our listeners, and we want to thank you for chiming in and participating in the chat. But this is an awesome opportunity to think about, what is it that you desire for yourself, and do you have the faith and the persistence? What about your self-talk and the auto-suggestion that's required to achieve your goal? What about that self-image? How about self-confidence? Oh, what about your self-discipline, self-control? It really is an inside job. And I think Kiana said that it is an inside job that we're not all willing to do the work, because it is work. It is work. It's worth the wood. Yes, it is. All right, Anthony, you can let everybody know how they can reach you, and if you have anything you'd like to promote.
Uh, you can reach me on a_Cameron 2. That's my Instagram name. Uh, you mentioned something about self discipline, and I feel like that's something that everybody really struggles with. And I just want to say that self discipline it's really something that, it's always something that you have to get you always have to get rid of habits, and in doing so it's always something that has to push you. And what pushed me was having a definite goal and something that I was passionate about. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is that you it may not be what you want to do in your life, but you have to be passionate about something to drive you. Like football, not only, you can't just be on the football team, you have to have good grades. So that also pushes me in school, that pushes me at home, that pushes me anywhere I am, just off of one thing. So if you're struggling with self discipline, I you should find a passion, and also find a connection with God. Have faith in Him.
Awesome. 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 Thank you so very much. Now, Miss Winter, anything you'd like to promote? I know you have your business and you're setting goals, and a chess player and a future Olympian. So please, if you can come on and share with us how people can reach you, Winter Williams.
You can reach me through my TikTok at official.winter at .kw. My email is wwynter040@gmail.com, and my Instagram is unicorn TikTok win. I'm starting a YouTube channel. I only have one video so far, but I'm planning to make more. It's Team Girl Win. I probably changed the username. I don't know if I really like that one. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Now, Miss Beguine, welcome back. And I don't know if there's any closing comments you may have, Beguine, about.
It's not often that I'm left speechless.
Yes.
It's not often that I'm left in a space of wow. And it's not often that I walk away. So let me tell you, there's a couple of things that I'm walking away with that are blowing my mind. So one is um, from Anthony talking about his persistence and the awareness of it, and the discipline, from Natasha and her books, and from Winter and her poise and her articulation of where they're going. And all I know is uh, one, I'll be there at the annual event. I'll be sitting at the children's table because I want to. I'm going to go with Anthony through the halls because I need to learn from him. I am uh, now going back, and I'm thinking about all the books that I've written and thinking, I got a lot of books to write. I got to catch up. I mean, what do I have? What do I have? 5 books, 6, 7, 7 books. But at their rate, they're going to have 35 books while they're my age. I got to work. I got to get myself going. This has been a phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal show. And
Thank
I
you.
know, and for everybody I know that you're watching, I know Dr. Raquel that you're watching, and for everybody that's watching, I know that we say that after every show. But here's 3 things that I really want you to do with the show. One, please share it. Share it with the young people in your life. Let them see and experience what a young person who is reading the book is learning and mastering. Number 2, share it with your own friends and ask them, how do you add up to this? How poised and confident are you? And maybe we should be starting our own mastermind. And then 3, really review this with your own masterminds. Send this message, because there are so many nuggets that as a mastermind and mastermind leader and a mastermind member, You really want to listen, because I heard from the group about accountability, showing up because everybody was showing up, making sure that you're following through on the steps, recognizing the more you read it, the deeper it goes. You and I both know that the book reads us. And, so I'm just in love with all of you. The way to find me is to go to at Peggy Power, do it on Instagram, at Peggy Power, do it on Facebook, at Peggy.club for $7 a month. You can be hearing me every single day in your ear, talking about confidence, leadership, business, sales, prosperity, and motivation. Go to Peggy.club, join the club so that I can fill your mind with the kind of messages that you deserve to hear, because you know that affirmations work and I give you the affirmations. Also, I want to just encourage everybody to join the annual event. And what Miss Ann didn't mention is, can you all just go and get the Ann Factor book and series? You could go on Amazon.com to get the Ann McNeil Factor, which has both the workbooks and her book, and also know that Ann does coaching. We both do coaching. Just make sure you take action and read the book and participate. Ann, what say you close us out?
Listen, this has been a dream come true for me. And since 1979 began, these these young people and the others, maybe we'll do a show with those who are over 70 that have been masterminding with us for over 40 years, 30 years, 20. That should be a really good group show. So we'll put that on the schedule for 2022,
Absolutely.
22. But
And
my
I'm going
name
to
is
pitch, I'm going to ask
yes.
Anthony and Winter and Natasha, and would you be willing to come back and do a show with us? Would you be willing to come back? Because Anne and I got to experience and fall in love with you. The people that have watched have gotten to experience and fall in love with you. But Peter and Galen missed out on you. And you all would blow their mind. And I want the world to know how magnificent you are. Anthony, I'm going to ask you to write a book, because I think that uh, young men and people need to hear the words of wisdom that come out of your mouth, the way that you present yourself. You are much
Yes,
needed, much loved. And I
yes.
can't, I will end in this way. First, Anne, I love you. Thank you so much for listening to your call back in 1979. Thank you so much for blessing us with all the work that you
Yeah.
do. Anthony, love you. Thank you for being here, for showing up and just sharing your wisdom. Natasha, your energy, your confidence is infusing us, builds us. It's being like we're being inoculated. Forget about the COVID. We got the positive bunny from you. Kiana, your wisdom at 35 is incredible, and you're knowing about life and what you've learned. I would love to work with you, be next to you, one of your coworkers, to be, you're the kind of person everybody wants in their life. And Winter Girl, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be there. Yes, when you get your Olympics, I'm going to be there. Yes, when you do all the things that you say, because I see a star. Actually, I see it with all of you. So that's my love. That's my gratitude. And for all of our listeners, please subscribe, share it. And thank you so much.
All
And that's
right,
that.
all right, all right, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up again. Ann McNeil, the master wealth builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life and business. And you can connect with me at annmcneil.com/coaching, but only if you desire a better quality of life in every area of your life, especially in the area of building your self confidence. Well, we have had a phenomenal show today. We will have another surprise for you next week, Saturday. Yes, we'll be back here next week, Saturday morning, bright and early. We want to thank you, Doretha, and everybody that chimes in every single Saturday. And we will look forward to seeing all of you registering with us. at the annual meeting. Remember, you can go to internationalmasterminders.com/. That's it. Internationalmasterminders.com. All right. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll put that information in the chat. And Pekin, thank you so very much for supporting these young people today, and every single one of you. We love you, and we will see all of you at the annual meeting on the 7th and also on the 8th of January 2022. All right, and with that, we're going to say good morning to everybody, and we'll see you all next Saturday.